global research here at TD Securities, and I'm also extremely proud to be the executive advisor of the Asian Employee Network. They left me this roll of tape. I don't know what it's for. It seems ominous. I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you, including ERG leaders who are here, members of the TD Asian Employee Network, and distinguished guests. A very special thank you to Ritu Baral and Oliver Chen and Rutvik. Where's Rutvik? Yeah. Hi. Okay, there he is. And our awesome DEI team for their contributions to today's event and leadership in the TD Securities Asian Employee Network. And to John Wang, there he is, and the entire team at the Asian American Business Development Center for their ongoing partnership and collaboration. So thank you. Since its inception at Cowen to its expanded presence here at TD Securities, the Asian Employee Network has seen an almost 250% increase in membership, engagement, and participation. It's only due to your engagement that the network has been able to flourish as it has. The program was intended for career development and networking opportunities for Asian team members at TD, and I hope it benefits you as much as it does TD. I can certainly speak to research, but it's undoubtedly true across the entire firm. If you have a monolithic product driven by people with a homogeneous background, you will not get the creativity and diversity of thought that is necessary to win. I would be remiss if I did not take a moment to celebrate the fact that two of our colleagues were recognized as Outstanding 50 Asians in Business Award winners over the past few years, including Ritu. So it's always nice to have third-party validation of what we all know already. It's particularly good for Ritu's mom.
It was peak Asian mom night.
And what we know is the exceptional talent and leadership within our network. As I mentioned a moment ago, we have sincere appreciation for our partnership with AABDC, which allows TD Securities to celebrate leaders, foster collaboration, and co-host impactful events like tonight's ERG Forum. This partnership plays a critical role in advancing dialogue on topics affecting Asian professionals. Building networks like the TD Securities Asian Employee Network to foster professional growth and community and the broader impact of coalitions like AABDC help us elevate visibility, collaboration, and shared success. So thank you again. This evening's theme is Visibility Matters, Unlocking Leadership Potential in a Hybrid Work Era, which is a great topic. I was thinking about doing this introduction remotely. I was told that wasn't going to work. This is a crucial topic for advancing Asian leadership. It could easily be a week-long seminar. No, Ritu, we cannot do it in Hawaii. We will begin and only begin to peel back how visibility and leadership recognition remain essential challenges that have only become more amplified in remote and hybrid work environments. I hope that today's discussion helps you with strategies to overcome these barriers and achieve upward mobility. Before I turn it over to Rutvik, I'd like to leave you with just a few thoughts on what I think is important as a leader. It's my own 10 rules of leadership in a very abbreviated form, just a list that I've honed over time. I hope that you get some use out of it, and I humbly present the abbreviated version to you. 10 rules. Number 1, lead from the front. Do not put your team on the battleground and call the shots from behind the curtain. Be in the weeds on details and lead by example. Number 2, roll up your sleeves. Never ask someone on your team to do something that you wouldn't do yourself. Number 3, use teaching moments and provide for your team. The most important role of a leader, I think, is to be a good coach. Even the best players need a coach. A good coach offers advice, but is there primarily to ensure that his or her team has the resources they need to succeed. Number 4, you become what you celebrate. Be sure to send kudos when they are due, and be sure that they aren't generic or lacking heart. Number 5, don't back down from a just fight. You won't be blamed for standing up for what's right. Stand up for your people at all costs. Number 6 is focus. Leaders cannot solve every problem immediately. Prioritize what must be done soonest, or you will end up with a crisis of half-solved issues. Be sure your team knows your most important strategic goals and enlist their help in helping you reach them. Number 7, sleep on it. Most of the time, you don't need to decide on big things right away. Take the time to contemplate. Number 8, take the time to plan strategically. Synthesize input from clients and partners. Creativity always wins. Allow yourself time to think laterally and differently, which brings me to number 9. Have some hobbies. Don't be boring. Hobbies will help you think about problems differently than your competitors. And number 10 lesson is leadership can be lonely. You'll just have to get used to that. What's good for the business is often not what's comfortable or popular. But if you're honest and consistent, that's okay. So with that, I'd like to introduce the amazing Rutvik Patel, head of our Asian Employee Network, who will share more about the agenda and the vision behind tonight's program. I hope you all enjoy the evening. Thanks for listening to me, and welcome.
Thanks, Robert. That's a tough act to follow, but I'll try my best. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ritu Patel. I'm a director for strategy at TD Securities, and I'm the lead for the TD Securities Asian Employee Network. I'm honored and I'm thrilled to welcome you to AABDC's year-end reception in ERG Forum in partnership with TD. The agenda for our evening is a panel on visibility, followed by an audience Q&A and a networking reception. The panel discussion this evening is a very relevant and important topic for many professional Asian Americans. We often struggle to be recognized as leaders in the workplace. Why is that? And what can we do about that? These are the questions that our panel will explore. In meetings or events, sometimes we don't know how to say something, and even if we should say something, we often wonder if it's okay to be seen, heard, or take up space. If you feel that way, I want you to know that there's a lot of us that feel similarly. It's an issue that has no silver bullet and can stem from various reasons, ranging from cultural expectations, biases, stories others say about us, or the stories we tell ourselves that hold us back. This discussion is an opportunity to sit back, listen, and learn from Asian leaders that have tackled this issue. Our panelists have unique and insightful perspectives on visibility. They come from diverse backgrounds and are incredibly successful. I'm grateful that they will share their stories and strategies with us tonight. I truly believe that action builds confidence, and the first act is to show up, whether that's to turn on your camera on Zoom or to come to an event like this. So I know many of you are already on your way to being recognized as leaders. And I hope to see some of you on a panel in the future to learn from your journey. I hope this event delivers powerful insights, inspiration, and an opportunity for you to get to know like-minded Asian American professionals. This event is possible due to the vision, passion, and collaboration of several individuals. Firstly, thank you to the AABDC team, John Wang and Evelyn Liu. Thank you for your partnership and your platform. Thank you to our DEI and events team, Tyra Orange and Flirta Gomez over here. Tyra, you are truly a force multiplier and have a unique ability to turn ideas into reality. Thank you to the TDS Asian Employee Network Steering Committee members here tonight. You are the bedrock of our community here at TDS, and your leadership does matter. And last but not least, thank you all for coming tonight. and helping us build a community that inspires Asian Americans. With that being said, now over to Ritu, Managing Director and Senior Biotechnology Analyst at TD Securities for our panel.
Well, thanks everyone for coming. As Rutvik mentioned, visibility matters, and we're going to dig in a little bit here on tactics, not just the reasons, but also tactics with our esteemed panelists who have lived the experience, have lived that upward arc in an age where visibility matters. And we were just all prepping earlier on why now is such a good time to address this. Visibility matters in an age where, as somebody who lives inside the Beltway, you're seeing appointments to leadership for people who come out of central casting. And I don't think any of us really come out of central casting on this stage, and yet we have worked our way there. And that can work against you as well, because maybe you're cast as something in the minds of people who you want to see your worth, and they just don't. I want to allow our panelists to give a little introduction to themselves, so we'll just move down the line. We'll start with Vince. Quick intro to your background and why I personally asked you to be here and tell your story.
Sure. So Vince Aida, I'm the founder and chief investment officer of Cutter Capital. We are a healthcare-focused investment firm that is actually you were cued me to mention that it is a majority minority firm running money in healthcare, which comes from my non-traditional background in getting into finance. I started off as a scientist in working with, I was a geneticist by training. I worked as part of the team on the Human Genome Project way back in the day when that was still challenging, which is, suffice to say, my 5 years of PhD work could probably be done in about 10 minutes on a laptop. That's how that works. So I took that pivot out of science into finance, had to figure out a path to climb from being just a data mining tool, if you will, as a junior analyst at a firm that was biotech focused, to climb up to the point now where I was able to be fortuitously enough positioned to launch my own firm, and where I am with this here. Very proud Korean American by background, which I think is part of why I was invited to be on this panel. But I think also, hopefully, as we get into some of the questions here and have a little bit of time for the discussion, can walk through how a non-traditional background for the finance world, I was able to navigate myself into a position where I found some success today. George, I'll give it to you.
Thanks. All right. Hey, everyone. My name is George Cisa. I am a team lead at Bloomberg LP in our engineering COO department. I manage a small team of developers and analysts, and we take a look at our data center footprint. Why am I here? I don't know. I'm Asian. I have a bachelor's in civil engineering from the Cooper Union. I started my career at Verizon doing procurement or strategic sourcing, so spending, imagine being 20 years old and spending billions of dollars on what we all know as Fios today. They relocated me to New Jersey, did not want to grow up there as a gay man, and found my way at Bloomberg, and from there, I realized that I'd never taken a finance or accounting class in my life, and went to Columbia Business School, and I moved over to engineering, where I am now. I think what gives me a unique vantage is because I'm LGBT, and at the time when I joined, marriage equality wasn't a thing. this concept of visibility that we're talking about today, I think was very relevant because you can't tell if someone's LGBT. Like, you can tell if someone's female, Black, Asian, you just don't know. So that was a big learning. And being authentic about that really helped me navigate a lot of the politics around just being out at work. And at that time, there were, let's just roll that clock back. You could get fired. Those protections weren't there. You could get fired from the military at the time. Marriage equality wasn't a thing. Even today, like a lot of those benefits were not equal. For example, right now we talk about parental leave. That is now, in many companies, gender neutral. So the primary parent could be the male and take that leave. But there's a lot of, we're here to have a great conversation about this hybrid work environment, and I think visibility does matter here. So.
Seema?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Seema Datta. I work at TD Securities. Currently, I'm head of the Americas Sales COO team, as well as Global Sales CAO lead. And what that really means is I drive client strategy in our franchise and, really see how we can expand and grow our footprint across the globe in various sectors with various different types of clients, from financial institutions, asset managers, hedge funds, to sovereign wealth funds. My journey is a little bit different. I've always worked at a bank, I'll be really honest, but I started in sales and trading. And when I started, not only were there very few Asians, but there were very few female Asians. And it became very hard in a sales and trading environment. You're cut from a different cloth when you work in that environment. And one thing I learned was about adaptability and growing and learning and taking negatives and making them positives. And I carried that through my career. Went from sales and trading to running risk, and back now into the sales and strategy side of it, which I find really rewarding. I think tonight's topic is very timely. I think it doesn't matter what stage of career you're in, because this topic always applies, and it will continue to apply to all of us at every stage in our career.
Yes, hi, good evening. My name is Ritu Baral, and I'm at Houlihan Lokey, which is a middle market investment bank. And I work on private equity and hedge fund assets, private assets that need valuations every so often. My journey is also, the backgrounds here are very impressive. I was an international student, came from India to study in the United States as an undergrad, and then had to work through an immigration process, still have to deal with an immigration process. And that's a journey that I think I bring to my firm in a way of access, that I've lived it, done it, I know what it takes, I know how much more discipline you need to have around your actual legal status to be able to remain employed in America. And that's been very valuable of an exchange that I've been able to offer colleagues at every stage of their career. Because sometimes this journey can take 15, 20 years, and it is a long journey, and you have to stay on top of it. And certainly, I've also seen along the way these journeys being interrupted, and sort of having to figure out how this person will sort of find their space and be able to be effective in another geography. And I've taken that as a passion to figure out, where there was great talent, it should not be interrupted because of immigration and policy in that direction. So I work hard to ensure that my team is able to get placed where they deserve to be placed, and I work on my network to make that happen for them. And so that's something I'll share and hopefully provide some perspective in that dimension.
So as we think about the hybrid environment, the first question I want to ask our panelists is, especially since they are in leadership positions, for their teams, what are we dealing with? How many days a week do people come in? How many days a week or month is hybrid allowed? I think for some of us, travel comes into it and how that can factor in, 2 days in the office and visibility. Maybe we'll start, we'll start with Vince, and we'll go down the line again. So as the founder of your fund, what's your in-office policy, and then we'll move down the line.
So I think for us, starting a new firm and establishing the culture of the new firm and a lot of the kind of shared work ethic and environment that we're going to have as people trying to build something together, it was extremely important for all of us to spend a lot of time together, physically in person. So we are in office 5 days a week, and it's a very entrepreneurial spirit of all of us understanding that we're trying to, kind of in these nascent stages of building a business, and really kind of to do that effectively, you have to be there physically together. So I think it's a little bit different perspective than a larger established organization, but I think there's still a lot of value to be taken and appreciation that there's other elements of importance to spending time. It's just the shared contribution of time that you spend together in the same place that I think gets lost a bit in the pursuit of more work from home type advantages. That's lost when there is actually an important, maybe not quantifiable, but important element to spending that shared time together in the office. So that's what we do.
George, as being part of a larger established organization with a brand name, what does your team do?
Yeah, so I'm going to break it down into two places. So Bloomberg is about 30,000 employees and operating in over 150 different cities around the planet. So we are inherently virtual, and I think during COVID, we proved that we could still be very productive and deliver. Now, in engineering specifically, there is an office mandate of a minimum of 3, and depending on where you are in the org, if you're a manager of managers, you may need to be in 5 days a week. The reality, though, is I think that flexibility is personal. So if I have a situation where maybe my home setup is not exactly the best and ideal place, and I prefer going to the office more often, great. If I need the personal time to concentrate because I'm a developer and I need blocks of uninterrupted time, working from home, actually, we've been there. Like it's more optimal in that manner. So I do think that the flexibility that we offer is there. I think the market is demanding it now, but it is personal, and I think that having those mandates, you put some structure around it and you monitor that. But there are accommodations that are met.
Seema?
So I work in global markets and sales and trading, so that's basically a 24/7 business if we look at it globally, follow the sun. So personally, our firm is 4 days in person, and that is the majority of what we do. However, I'm going to caveat all of this is, managing a team that's already in different locations, so whether they're in Singapore or Tokyo or India, they're by nature virtual, right? But they're virtual with other employees, right? So when you go to the office, there is something to be said about going to work and that camaraderie you build. You spend a lot of time with your colleagues. This is your second family, in a sense, because you spend almost equal amount of your time on a daily basis with your colleagues. And it's proven by studies that if you have positive relationships at a firm, you yourself will perform better in that environment. If you have someone to say, hey, do you know how to do this? And say, let me show you. That's not happening always on Zoom. Not to say it can't happen, but the likelihood of it happening and the frequency is a lot lower. So, we just encourage that really for your own personal development and career development, just so that you can also grow and learn from others. So,
Yeah, no, I agree. Houlihan Lokey has a mandated 3 to 4 week day in office policy, and a lot of the same themes. We also believe very much we're in a sell side advisory business, and the culture in the way we go to market, the way we handle our clients, That's a shared culture. There is a a true DNA to how we are doing it and how it separates from the rest of the banks on Wall Street, and that can only be fostered and developed when you're together. And I totally agree with Seema that the journey of sort of being able to of treating it as a second family, of leaning on each other. We work very flexibly around covering each other when someone needs to be home, and and I personally also realized the tangible benefits of the productivity I was being able to bring at home. When COVID happened, we were all forced into it, but there were pockets of contribution that I couldn't see until I was home, and now that I can offer those pockets of contribution, the entire family's productivity is better in a way. So the hybrid policy makes sense for us as a firm because we recognize that people are taking care of children, taking care of elders, and living a life away with their first family. And there are many ways that they want to contribute. They couldn't, and the workforce had never allowed that in the past. But COVID has created this paradigm shift where you can actually balance this. And balance is not the best word, but you can focus on what matters and where you can contribute at home and where you can contribute at work. And there's a way to get it done. So the hybrid policy works well for us.
Rutvik, oh, go ahead.
Let me just add one more thing. We do have conversations within our team to try to make sure that we are all there on 1 or 2 days of this, like out of the 3. We
The
don't
anchor
manage
days,
it,
the
but-
concept of anchor days, right?
Right, so that we do try to go in there on Tuesday or Wednesday, so when we do show up, there are people around you. So like Friday typically is an empty office day.
Rutvik, I'm gonna go off script here, but as you approach the flexibility and the hybrid work, do you see patterns emerge at Houlihan Lokey on seniority as far as flexibility? You know, who benefits the most from being in office and sort of learning from the ambient environment versus sort of as people move up the ladder? Are there
Yeah, I
patterns
think
of
the senior people are definitely coming in a lot more. The junior people actually are recognizing that there's so much more to learn and so much
So
more.
the senior people are coming in more.
Yeah, senior
the
people are
junior
coming.
people.
Yeah, they are.
But
That-
who
and
has
that-
the most to gain?
I think on the senior side, there's a lot to gain from just being able to walk to each other's offices and go out and meet someone, because in our business things are happening, almost on an instantaneous basis, and you've got to just get up and go and meet somebody.
Yeah.
And your client is already in the city as well, so it doesn't, you lose velocity if you're not able to get together. But on the junior side, what's really interesting is I can pull along a junior to join that meeting. That in itself is, a huge experience of just what it feels like to stop what you're doing, move into velocity, and move into a conversation that you weren't prepared to have, and how that looks, what that feels like. And then they also get a trajectory of just, learning from us, us coming to their desk and saying, these are the things we're working on, and that creates another sense of mission and commitment that you can't get over Zoom, or you can't get in any other sort of format. You have to feel it. You have to look at my eyeballs. You have to feel my energy, and then sort of be able to work with that.
So let's move on to the next question before I get the hook, start getting the hook. How do we confront cultural expectations that can hold us back, that can hold back self-promotion, visibility? Many of us come from cultures where it's frowned on to sort of self-promote, talk about how amazing you are, even though we may feel it, especially if we don't feel it. How do we overcome the cultural reluctance, internal or even external, things that are not expected of us, to assert our value, particularly in a professional setting? Seema, do you want to go ahead and start?
Sure. Look, the barrier is what you have set, in all honesty. It's your own personal barrier. If you want to break through, or that's what you desire, and you don't know how, that's a different problem of not knowing how. But you should have mentors, and you should have people that you can turn to help you do that. You should have a sponsor in your firm to kind of say, this is how you navigate on the influencing of, like, I know how to do it, but I just can't do it. We have to self-reflect and promote, because you are your biggest proponent. No one can promote you and know your abilities more than you do. And to be honest, if you don't do it, the person next to you will do it.
And not for you.
And not for you, but for themselves. You will be in a room and you'll be sitting there, the person will say like, well, I did this, or I want to do this. And you in your head were saying, I was thinking about that, like I wanted to do that too, I just didn't know how to say it, and that person just said it. Like, how did they do that? I want to do that. So you have to work on yourself a little bit and have that confidence, because that's the beauty of coming into the office too, though. It's these nuances I think you learn a little bit, and you see how that person handles themselves, how they vocalize their thoughts and desires. It's there. If you want it and you want to do it, work on it. You can do it. It's very important that you do it if you want to influence your career, because your hard work, head down, will only get you so far.
Yeah, that point I think is really well taken, and I maybe come at it from a slightly different vantage point of messaging the same thing. So before I started Qatar, I spent 7 years at Citadel, and Citadel, among other things about the place, one thing that is a truism about that place is they have a culture of internal development of people to move up they have a strong preference for developing talent and having people evolve in roles internally than looking outside them. That's one of the things about them. And one of the things that was a bit of a truism, if you will, was people got promoted because they already demonstrated the competency to do the next job. They were in their current roles already exemplifying what it would take to be in the next role. So to deconstruct that for a moment and come at this from a little bit different angle, how do you then get yourself in a place where you're demonstrating the skills and talents of the next level that you want to be, of your boss's job, or whatever else, without being in any sort of way kind of confrontational about it or whatever else, but you want to aspire to be where your boss is at, you want to aspire to be the next role of wherever your position is in. And I think one of the ways to do that, irrespective of your role now, but one of the ways to do that is to actually start asking yourself, how can I make my boss's job easier? What are the things that they are trying to solve for in their daily role? And if you and especially actually in informal conversations, in poking around the periphery, in understanding what your boss has to solve for on a daily basis, if you start to just kind of proactively chip in, and if you're not sure, ask questions that help you develop that skill set to do what the role is, that is the role above you. Before you know it, you're actually, kind of working in lockstep with your boss to do that, and you are demonstrating that you're capable of doing that role. And to come back to the first question, that's part of the importance of being kind of physically present with where your team is, so that you can see what is being done by that role above you, so that you could develop that skill set and just help. And just figure out, like, it's not about, I think what gets lost is, whatever role you're in is not about being told a set of deliverables and then doing that. That's the bare minimum. That's not gonna really get you advanced at all. But what gets you advanced is, okay, here are the deliverables I'm gonna do, that's fine. But the next order of things, what makes my boss's life easier? What are they trying to solve for? What do they have to do? And what can I do to contribute to that more? And that gets recognized, because then you look and you say, they're capable of doing X, Y, and Z. I'm going to give them more responsibility there. And next thing you know, the organization realizes that that role is, when that role opens up, you are capable of doing that.
So it's the initiative and the anticipation of what comes next. And if your leadership sees that you are accurate in anticipating that next step, that's 90% of the bar.
Absolutely.
That's 90%.
Absolutely. And that's irrespective of whatever your current role is. you can find yourself in the next role by actually, without being pushed back, doing the role.
To add to that, I think that's table stakes. I think if you're in this room, you're probably already very competent in whatever it is that you're doing, and you may already be doing that role. I think, for me at least, as an immigrant came here when I was 3, being raised in an immigrant household, it was all about just fitting in. Do not rock that boat, do not make a noise, study, be competent. Your life is already better. That's why we're here, right? So that concept, you're already talented, you're already there. It's about promoting yourself, making sure that you are visible when it's a mindset shift, I think is what I'm trying to get at. Like, we are told that if you do this, you're going to get that. But if you're not promoting yourself and demonstrating in written, oral, advocacy, sponsorship, you're probably just going to be that high performer that does the job. And they don't want to promote you because there's going to be a massive hole to backfill you as well.
You do that job really well.
Yeah.
They don't see what other job you're doing really well. All they see is the hole that you will leave if you move out of the job.
And if you're not raising your hand and saying, I want more, I want that, why are they going to pull you out? And that sponsorship component is so important.
We'll
Yeah.
get to that, because we have
Yeah.
a whole question on mentorship versus sponsorship that
I get excited.
Seema and I have talked about. I want to move next to this tactics question, and Vince talked about it a little bit, but how do you maintain and amplify your visibility in a hybrid or work environment? And this really comes down to, like, what do you do? What are things that people in this room can actually take notes on for what they can do going into work tomorrow, staying authentic to themselves? But this is definitely a personal anecdote story.
I'm happy to take a little bit of a stab at this. Showing up, like when you work from home, I think work from home became much more acceptable, feasible from a technology standpoint, as well as like an acceptance standpoint due to COVID. And I would almost argue that we were probably working more during COVID because of hybrid, because we were always on. Like it was, you should be accessible, like you can't go anywhere else. So like if I have a question and you found yourself a little bit sometimes not having the same boundaries of when you came and when you left. But what the difference is, when you are there, your camera's on, you're talking, you're not late to your meetings, you're doing it, being seen. But it goes back to what Vince is saying. You should be observing what are the other people doing and what's happening. Because even in a hybrid work environment, people are advancing. And so how do they do that? And I think you have to kind of make sure that you influence. And I think influence is a big thing too. Influence change, influence your thought, your leadership, and demonstrate that my work is irrespective of in person or that. There's different aspects. There's the velocity, because nothing can change that. Like being in the moment and being there.
Seema, do you have tactics for influence? I mean, this is like a big topic where, you do your work, but how do you laterally influence? How do you upward influence? What's worked for you?
I have a team, and I make sure that on every project, everybody's on a global project, everybody is on their own project independently. I try and get them to be visible with others. So when they see us doing that, that's kind of the way I've influenced. I've influenced down. How do I influence up now is the next step, right? So now I've told people how you can get more visible. I think some of the tactics I use is I write emails. So like every time I meet someone, I talk to people, I go out and meet people in different departments. So I'm not stuck in my little cube of like, this is my group and this is who I work with. I want to see what they're doing and I want to know what they're doing. Can I do the same thing? Can I do it better? So I think you have to show that, look, hey, I went and talked to XYZ and they're doing this and I think this could benefit us. Let's give it a try. And I think those are some of the tactics I personally have seen work well in a sales and trading environment.
Vince, I want to talk about your internal and external tactics because as you mentioned, you came from working in a lab as a genetic data scientist to starting your own fund, which for those of you who may not be familiar with the process, takes a heck of a lot of meetings, a heck of a lot of marketing, a heck of a lot of self-promotion, basically everything you were told not to do as a PhD student, probably. How did you get there? What did you use?
So I think there's it's a much maybe broader scale. I don't want to oversimplify it. It's a much broader scale, but it's really there's an element of reading the room. There's an element of understanding in any particular organization, whether it's where you start out with before you try to branch out, or whether you then kind of go elsewhere. How the kind of power structures of those organizations flow, and who you need to be visible with. And it's not about like uncomfortable self-promotion about who you are, but it is about making sure that the people who are ultimately decision makers that could influence the expansion of your role beyond just your boss, beyond just where that is, that they know who you are and they know how you contribute. And so that is about just reading the org structure, reading the understanding of what's going through. It's not about trying to bypass your boss. It's not about trying to bypass, but it's about understanding that evolution of flow. And then for me, it was the evolution of that just expanded outside of the firm to where when I was in Citadel, I knew that if I was going to leave and try to start my own firm, I would have to network among other founders who had done that before to understand if the skill set that they demonstrated, how they got there, was something that I can emulate. There was a lot of, you call it whether it's mentoring or networking, basically a lot of information gathering from talking to people who've gone that path before. And so by spending that time with people who've done it before, you can kind of understand whether, one, you think you could do it yourself, and two, what it takes to get there. But it's about making sure that ecosystem, that you're present in it. And
I love that you said information gathering because I was raised in a household where if you networked, if you tried to read the room and tried to see like who was important for you, that was political to my parents, right? Like there was like, oh, you're being political, like you need to do your work. But when I couched it as information gathering, all of a sudden that was like different to my mom. And the whole like mentorship thing, this brings us, Seema, into our next question about, you know, the role of mentors and sponsors and how that has worked for you and for others on this panel. How can we find advocates to help us amplify the visibility of our potential?
Yeah, so I personally call them my board of directors. It's just my terminology, but it's a combination of mentors and sponsors. I think mentors can be in your field, out of your field. They can be in your network or not. They're really people to help guide you without judgment, who are really there to show you how to improve, help you make decisions, break it down, give you hard feedback, like, actually you're wrong, or maybe this isn't the right role for you. And sometimes it's difficult to accept, but you need someone who's honest with you. You have sponsors who help navigate your advancement, who know your potential, who've seen you do what Vince says is do your boss's job, or see that you've done information gathering and you really put time to grow yourself. I think it's critical. And it's not somebody you're going to walk up and say, hey, will you be my mentor? These are relationships that you formulate over time. And I think being from an Asian immigrant family, you didn't always go out and like seek mentorship, because it's almost like you keep it in the family what you're trying to do. And it was that mentality to break through But when you tell people like they're helping me, they're somebody that's supporting me, it's a little different. I think it's critical. You have a vast network. I think coming to events like this and meeting people who might be going through this, or you might be thinking of taking a job somewhere else, or they know somebody, or they can tell you, you know, you have this problem, this is how we tackled it here. Did you try this? It's really important that you have, you know, you invest in yourself. I have no other words other than say, like, you have to spend time on yourself. You have to have, like they said, the hobbies, because it does make you think differently. You have to talk to people of different backgrounds, different ages. Mentors are not age restricted, right? We should be very clear on that, because there's a lot to be learned from the younger generation, the older, and your peers. So I feel pretty strongly that everybody should really invest in themselves and get mentors.
Rutvik, do you have a mentorship story or a sponsorship story to share?
Yeah, many of these, and again, given the starting point that I had, which was I had to first literally learn how to open a bank account here to start figuring out everything that comes with that journey. And the mentors are folks. Agree with everything Seema said. They're people that you can be completely comfortable with. That takes a long time or it takes a committed amount of time to sort of build that level of rapport where you can talk about, things that you have self-awareness around that are holding you back, and then you have to sort of really share to get the benefits of what they can offer you as a mentor, what they've gone through in their journey, and how it relates to what you're trying to break through. So these are very, very important relationships. I've had them at every stage of my career. When I joined, I started off at Ernst & Young, which is a very large organization, and I sought folks out based on, some of it was just literally around how do I, get my stuff together from an immigration perspective, and I was looking for other partners and other folks that had done this. I'd even spoken to the immigration group at Ernst & Young that did that as a client service because it was complicated back then. And that became, through that network, I learned so many things around this topic so that I could now then pass on. And it was one of those things, I became an automatic mentor because people would say, go talk to Rutvik, he just did this, he just did that. And there would be the stream of influx of people saying, how did you do that, what did you do? And I realized how impactful those moments of just tactical advice in those moments is, as well as the long-term sort of journey of this is how this journey looks, this is the arc of the journey, this is the job on top of the job that you have to make sure you're doing as well so that you don't interrupt your progress. And then, from there on, it went on to, actual fields of work and technical skills where, again, you seek out the mentor to sort of break through on certain areas where you're getting stuck every single time. You have self-awareness around it, and you can't talk to your direct boss about it, but you go and talk to the mentor, and they're like, yeah, this happened to me. And you'll always find that what's amazing about being human is that this journey has been endured and navigated before. It doesn't have to look like you, but the journey has been navigated. You just have to have the commitment to finding that person, and then they will open up, and the resonance is right immediate. They'll be like, yeah, I know what that feels like, and this is what you should do. And the response will also feel natural to you because they'll speak to you, like they're you in the way they've navigated that.
One thing I would add is that, especially if you feel that you are the junior person looking for a senior mentor, do not underestimate what you have to offer them.
Yeah.
This goes, Seema, you alluded to this, but I'm thinking of my own instance where I had an associate once who has now gone to the client side, who helped me set up my first tweet deck back in the day. As you know, when I started off, there were chat rooms for stocks, and that moved to Twitter at that point, now X. And setting up a tweet deck of the stories that I was in, the stocks that I was looking at, I had no idea that was a thing. She showed me, and frankly, it helped our relationship blossom into not just an employer-employee, team head, an employee. This ended up sort of sparking the dynamic of a true mentorship, leadership, sponsorship relationship. So don't underestimate what you can offer to the person that you are asking for help from. If that, that you shouldn't feel bad, because I bet you can offer them almost as much as they can offer you. So don't underestimate yourself. Last question before we move to Q&A. What should organizations be doing better to support Asian employees in their own leadership developments? Or what structural changes, programs can companies offer? We have a number of leadership people in the audience today, just to better recognize and nurture leadership amongst Asian employees. Rutvik, you had some very specific ideas.
Yeah,
about
no,
this.
absolutely.
Yeah,
So for me, leadership, first of all, we all probably see leadership in different ways. What I've always seen it as, it's the Simon Sinek school of, it's not about being in charge, it's about taking care of people in your charge. And there are certain personal attributes that you bring to that equation. And then there's actual sort of tactical things that you can do for each other. And from a leadership perspective, the personal attributes that I found very effective is, and it's also almost natural to the way our Asian values they're aligned in that way. I found humility, I found access, I found sort of that ability to be empathetic and stay in the conversation and listen. These are all sort of values that align very well, and they come naturally. They can be learned, they can be worked on, they can be practiced. But the second piece of it is the clarity piece. This is the piece where I've seen, myself, I've struggled with clarity, and clarity being, I've been told I'm too verbose. I've been told I learned the Queen's English growing up in Calcutta, India, and I write long sentences perfectly grammatical, but they would drive people crazy, saying I can't read so much content. So I realized very quickly that clarity is not just about clarity is about precision. It's about making sure that people are you're listening to what you have to practice first. Are you able to understand what you're saying? And you want to communicate something complex, you want to communicate sort of that to Vince's point, and to George's point, you want to communicate visibility and in how you're going to do it, what does it sound like, what are the words you're going to use. So that clarity in all communication is very important, and that's an area where I think we need to support each other as folks that have navigated this. I've learned it the hard way, and what I find now, what I do is I give real-time feedback, a lot of real-time feedback. Right after a conversation's happening, in the middle of a conversation, we are losing each other because you've drifted in what you're trying to tell me. And I stop the conversation and I start to listen again. What are you trying to tell me? And I used to do that to myself, and people used to do that to me, and I realized that there is a way to do it. There's an art to this, and it's very important to, from an organization, what should the organization do? First of all, we as professionals need to have a high degree of self-awareness of what's happening. Are you rambling? Are you losing?
And this is beyond just business English that we were talking about.
Yeah. So this, and again,
standard,
business English is one thing also, and obviously
but it's
a lot
next level.
for a lot of us, we're multilingual. We're very effective in our natural language, but we may, again, the business aspect of it and the English business aspect of it, because you're working here in New York. I've seen colleagues who are extremely effective when they have to deal with a geography that they speak the language in, and then when they come to the English side, it becomes complicated. But it's what I'm describing here is not just about the language barrier. The language barrier, we have, I have lots of colleagues on my team that keep, you keep your authenticity in the way you sound, in the way you speak, in the way you enunciate. All of that's not a problem as long as people are understanding what you're trying to say. And that clarity comes from, the way you organize your thoughts. It comes from looking for good communication. You should be able to tell after some time, that person spoke so well, it resonated with me, I clearly understood. And if you can, you have to reach out to that person and say, you start with that compliment, that this was incredible. The way you spoke to me or the way you spoke to us was really effective. How do you do it? What's your process? What do you do? What do you plan? You find out that it's not as natural as it looks when they're doing it. There is a process, they have a way they organize themselves, the way they organize their thoughts, their objective, what they want to speak to, And there are full courses on this. You can go all the way from an organizational perspective into public speaking, communication, all of that. But I think a lot of this is each organization, we as leaders have to support each other in the Asian community in particular to help sort of make sure that we are not neglecting this aspect, that there is a focus on it. Communicating with clarity is essential to me in leadership, because if you don't have clarity, then the whole team will move in random ways, and that'll create a lot of inefficiency. So clarity comes right to the top from a leadership perspective. It's true in all settings as far as I can observe. The people that are clear are getting things done. The people that are not clear are not getting things done. It seems very simple from that standpoint. So I take this very passionately, and I people get uncomfortable when I stop them. I was like, don't worry, I'm not stopping you because you're saying something wrong. I'm stopping you because I can't understand what you're asking of me, what you want to communicate. And then we work together on those moments. That's where the organization has to have people in leadership positions that exercise that patience and exercise that deliberate effort to understand. Because it's very easy to just be like, I don't get this person, dismiss them forever, and you just completely miss an opportunity on talent progression that could have been had.
Seema, I want to end with you, and as we were pulling this together, this idea that there can be programs that are culturally specific, and as the team member of the non-American company, the rest of us are US founded, but Nomura being sort of having a quintessentially international Japanese influenced culture, how do you think of programs for those members of the audience who aren't working, especially since we're in New York, an incredibly international city, non-US inflected situations or environments?
It's not as simple as it sounds. You would have thought, like, okay, this is an Asian bank. It really understands the Asian culture, and it does. But I'll say I've been there 18 months. I haven't been with Nomura very long, but the first thing I got there was, there's no Asian network. How is that? Like, it's an Asian bank. What do you mean there's just because we're Asian doesn't mean you don't need a network.
Right.
So I founded the network, and it's become the Asian and Allies Network. And why I'm passionate about this network is two things. It's a place where people of like backgrounds with similar experiences feel they have a group of people that understand them. Very important. Second, I'm really big on giving back. So like if I've learned an experience, I think it's people have to give back. But that's only if you show up. So starting the network is great, but if I don't get people to come to this network and I don't create programs like tonight's program to help invest in them and make them meet other people and learn, then I haven't really followed through on that, right? And so having programs, trying to get your firm to give you even more programs that actually might fit your community, because you're right, like, how do you differentiate between an Asian and an LGBTQ? You can't. But that doesn't mean they don't need people to help them and identify and sympathize with their situation and help them go forward. Everybody needs that. So you have to show up, you have to push for those programs. I think it's really critical that you do that.
With that, I think we have 15 minutes for Q&A. We have mics that are going to be floated.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah,
We have
go
a
ahead.
bunch of people standing in the front and lots
Lots
of
of
seats
seats.
down front. So please
Straight up
come
front.
and have a seat as we are getting started with Q&A. Make your way, and there are seats here, all here, and here. Please come down front.
I actually have a couple of comments too. Having a mother who's not from New York, I sometimes realize that she didn't understand what I said. So part of communication is understanding and being aware of the fact that someone didn't get what you just communicated, and then you have to communicate it differently. And that's something that I am very heavily steeped in, working in a very multinational type of dental firm where we're moving towards a DSO. But I just wanted to ask a couple of questions But I also wanted to invite people to be participants in my study. I'm looking to recruit because I'm looking at power and leadership in Chinese women in the financial field. And if someone would like to be participant in the study, I would really appreciate it because we are researching this and we'll interview you and you'll be a participant. You could even be anonymous and not just give some kind of an email address. I just wanted to ask a question about the financial industry and how that's a little bit different from some of the businesses that I've worked in. I've worked in quite a number of different businesses. And virtual teams and developing virtual teams. My background also is in sales, just like Ms. Seema Datta. It's been sometimes a challenge, but when you work on a virtual team, it's just a little bit different. And with COVID, we've had to do that in many organizations that I've worked with. But I actually made some of the biggest amounts of money doing that using Zoom. So what do you find are some of the challenges in working in virtual teams within a sales environment, specifically within the financial field?
It's like any other relationship. You have to invest in it. You have to reach out to your client. It's not only when there's a problem or when there's an ask. You have to kind of say like, I have this idea, or we're thinking of this, and what you do. It's not just like, oh, I need this, or I want to transact in this, or can you do this? Or it has to be a two-way. You have to offer them something, and they offer you. So I think it's really critical in a sales role to formulate those relationships, not only on a need-to-know basis, but on an ongoing. You know, you have to, again, invest in that relationship wholly. You know, say like, hey, Vince, I heard you're doing this. I know somebody else. I'd love to connect you. Let me connect you. So it's not, you have to help them build their network and invest in that client as well.
One of the biggest challenges I've found in a virtual team in finance is just the time-sensitive nature of finance around the markets. There's a loss of immediacy, and it's not just verbal. It's reading the room. I remember one instance where there was a company that did something stupid. There's no tell. There's many of them, and I was so overwhelmed with shock and disappointment that I literally think I fell out of my seat, and my team just literally saw me fall out of the seat. I didn't have to communicate anything. It was like, oh my God, what happened? And I was with juniors who were, in the trenches with me. And there was the immediacy of the reaction of what happened, how can we help, have we seen this before, was within a matter of 45 seconds. It would have never happened because we were in the bullpen together, right? That would have never happened over Zoom. Nobody would have seen me, tearing my hair out at my desk at home. And this is something that I try when I can in the office, that sort of, the ability to read the room is so much more impaired with Zoom. And that is so critical in getting ahead.
Thank you.
Hi, first thank you for the panel, very insightful and very timely topic. Have you developed any programs or tactics to motivate people to come back to work and spend the time together? Like if you have, what are those effective programs and tactics that is also authentic and doesn't look like you're forcing them to come back to work? I mean, in person.
I could start. Unfortunately, some of these tactics do look like they're forcing them to come back. At least in finance, it's quite common now that you're getting communication that says that if you're not showing up, it could be career limiting. What I know that we're not going that extreme at Houlihan Lokey, but we are certainly measuring productivity and measuring what deals you're working on, how many deals you're working on, and there's a direct correlation between how often you're in the office versus you're not. So it is implicitly getting captured, because if you're not there, not present, you're not going to have as much of a roster of experience at the end of the year. and that's going to then result in true economic impact to your year. And so, I'm trying to make this very simple for most of the colleagues, is that don't let that be a reason for not having a great outcome in any fiscal year. Just take this off the table. Just be here. You learn with us. You do all the things you need to do. You'll grow in your career. And when you need to be away, so I think what it's doing is we're making sure that we are able to cover each other for what they need to be away for, because otherwise, at least our business thrives when we're together. And you individually thrive, the group thrives. And if you, so unfortunately we've had all the other tactics, free lunch, breakfast, all of that, we've tried all of that. We provide sort of, wellness experiences and all of that. None of it really works. But the thing that has worked, unfortunately, is this construct. I'm going to measure you at the end of the year and look at how many deals you have, and it's going to be, we always did that, but it was never this. There is a disparity, unfortunately, for those that are not in the office and those that are.
Yeah, I'm gonna second that. There's no other way. We tried the whole, we're having in-person trainings, how to deliver this, how to do this, and it's in person. But that's not gonna get you consistently someone in the office. That's a one-off, or they'll come. It's literally saying XYZ has X more responsibilities and is doing this much better. And it's an unspoken but visible difference. It's unfortunate, but that is the way it is.
I have a quick question. So, hey, my name is Shivika. I'm from TD Securities, and I'm part of the Asian Employee Network. So first off, thanks again to the panel for your insights. My question is kind of to the panel in general. I think for some of us who've been part of the workforce, for maybe 5+ years, I think we can relate to a work environment and a culture that was pre-COVID. And so I think a lot of the conversation today has been sort of, being able to juxtapose those two things of how it was back in the day, or pre-COVID, to how it is now, and how we've been able to adapt. But I guess if I could hear from the panel on what is your advice, or what can you say about folks that are actually more junior? So for me personally, as a people manager, if I'm recruiting someone who's entering the workforce and all they've ever known is this hybrid version, what can you say is a good way to sort of retain the culture? And if there is a specific work ethic or a particular sort of mindset that you want to kind of promote and encourage with the people on your team, how do you kind of build that for the people that are only ever going to know this sort of post-COVID hybrid work environment?
I found within my team, I tend to hire people with a very high level of FOMO. So it's really, they're all sitting there and they're laughing because they know it's true. It's participation. It's the fact that if you are there, that immediacy lets you be part of something in a way that's not if you're remote, unless you have a perfect read, which as a 22-year-old or 27-year-old, you do not have a perfect read of anything. God knows you don't. And it's that ability to just jump in and participate, much to the dismay of my, the people I share a wall with in the New York office. I tend to do all my calls on speakerphone. They all know this. They can come running into my office and listen to every single call with a client that I have. Or if it's a last minute, I'm in New York, I'm actually DC based. When I come into the New York office, I'll meet a client for a drink or I'll have a meeting with them. I don't really care how they're dressed. They're all in business casual. It's come with me to meet the client. If they're not in the office, they don't get that. And that sense of FOMO just gets them inside, just completely. So, then it's oh, can I come next time? And that answer of can I come into the office on the days that things are happening, it's automatic. It's an ask from them versus an ask from me. Happy hours also help. Lunch is one thing, but happy hours. Yeah. That's when, look, I can make light of it, but that's when these conversations happen. In my team, oftentimes stories will come up like, I know I'm gonna get this later, Ritu, what was the company that made you fall out of your seat? And I will shelve it. I'm like, that's for next team happy hour, you know.
Hi, I have a question. So, thank you everyone. It's an amazing session and got to learn so much from your stories. Could resonate a lot of them from immigration to the board of director advice. It's very good. This question is more to a sponsor, right? So, in a company, you see a senior executive. How do you approach them to become your mentor and sponsor? How do you build a relationship that they would vouch for you? So, how have you done in your career? Would love to get insight from the panel.
So, sure, so sponsorship, again, isn't somebody you just walk up and sponsor. Someone is usually a sponsor within your firm, within your area, and they see your growth. They see you, it's a demonstration of work, not only what you're expected to do, but what you're doing above and beyond that. And then they can see that potential of growth. So how do you create that connectivity with your boss's boss's boss? Just for an example, right? It's first to make sure you're very comfortable with your boss and you are right there, right with them, like Ritu creates that environment. You can really see that, right? She wants everybody in the room. You can listen to my call, be a part of the team, be in it, you know, you gotta be in it to win it, right? So you develop that. And then through your work and your ideas outside of this is the way I've done it. So I saw this idea, I had this idea, if we did this here, I'd like to present it and see if I can get support to do a trial or to just see how this prototype works. And you'd be surprised, even if you fail at your prototype, it's your entrepreneurial spirit that you thought of this, you wanted to improve on this, you wanted to do something better. I also try and go to where my sponsor might be speaking, might be hosting something to create that connectivity. Does that person really connect, or are they just, am I just saying that because they're my boss's boss, right? Like, you have to have a connection. That person has to speak to you, and you have to, just like any other relationship, takes time to build, and they'll naturally become your sponsor. Versus a mentor, right? A sponsor will naturally happen from seeing what you do and isn't as forced.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Athena. Thank you all so much.
Is that on?
Is this better?
No.
Oh, hi. Yeah. I'm Athena. Thank you all so much for taking the time today. I have a few questions. First for George, I really identified with what you said about not rocking the boat, kind of putting your head down, growing up in an immigrant family. And I'm curious as to, can you remember like the first time that you did rock that boat? How did it feel, and what did you learn from it? And also for Vince, I was really drawn to your experience about building that ecosystem. What would you say was the biggest challenge to doing that, and was there any kind of surprising barrier to kind of building out your network of people you really identified with and wanted to build with? Thank you.
So it's a little addicting. I'll just bring it back to the time. So it's 2011. I just joined Bloomberg, and I wanted to make a bunch of friends. I didn't come out. I was in the closet. And it's June, and I'm invited to all these other companies having Pride events. And I'm like, our company has a better culture. It's got free snacks. It's a lot of fun. We don't do anything like this. And I asked about what do we have. I put a ticket in. Do we have an employee resource group? We don't do that here. We're a meritocracy. Everyone's the same. We don't do that here. And I asked someone else, and they were like, no. Asked someone else, and they're like, you're onto something. We need to do something about this. Fast forward that because I authentically wanted this, and I knew that there was an opportunity that we were missing. I got someone to sponsor that initiative, and that turned into something that was identified as a huge gap in the company, and there was a lot of investment made. What I learned is that you will be told no, and until you find someone that can believe in what you're doing and sees that vision, they will do it. So when I finished Columbia Business School, I wanted to go do a rotation program. It didn't exist. They had an issue with mobility. I think that's pretty common in the company, but there's people don't move around in the company, it's easier to leave. And I said, I want to go, we're an international company, I have colleagues all over the place, I want to go to Europe, South America, Asia, 6 months each. No, you can't do that. And our head, I finally went to our head, was like, if I don't do this, you're gonna leave. You're delivering most of our results, and I can't afford to lose you. We'll send you to Europe, to London for 6 months. So it's being bold. Like, you have to ask. If you can't ask, no one's going to know, because it takes work to do a lot of these things. And you may be doing something that's not in a preset program. Yeah.
I'd say for me, in terms of building color, and even going before that in terms of building teams out of prior firms that I was at, it was really, from my perspective, trying to understand through the interview process, through getting to know people that potentially were going to join up, understanding where their motivations come from, and really understanding, what their approach is to what opportunity they're looking for. So I wasn't really so much about, like, you made before about table stakes. Table stakes is your ability, your talent, what you bring with you, and for the most part, I was fortunate enough, and in finance, generally speaking, you're fortunate enough that the talent level of people who apply for these jobs is significant. There's a lot of talented people who apply for these jobs. So the talent doesn't get you the job. What gets you the job is your the mentality around what you want that position to be, and whether that aligns with what you need for that person. So I found that sometimes you run into trouble when people are trying to solve for a title, or they're trying to solve for the role, in terms of, just where they think they should be, as opposed to people who come into it with a development mentality that you understand that they're not trying to solve for the title, they're trying to solve for the boss. They're trying to solve for the mentor. They're trying to solve for the role. And the title is almost, the title just, it almost doesn't matter. It'll come. And titles will come, and roles will come. But you realize that your experience, and again, this comes down to comments we made before about this being a second family that you have when you're in the office this much. Who you want to be that family, and how much is, I always felt like, how much is the candidate assessing that they want to work with me? How much are they assessing they want to work with their colleagues? And so it was about that cultural fit, but that cultural fit comes from understanding that people are self-aware enough that that matters to them, and that they're not just reaching for a role or a title, but that they're reaching for a relationship. So that's.
With that, I think we're going to wrap up. We're over time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's a wonderful, thanks for the wonderful panel. Certainly, we all learned a lot. That's a great deal. And well, of course, we want to really thank the TD Securities for partnering with us. Ira and Robert and Rutvik have been working so hard and putting this event together. And I hope you all, learn something from this. And I would say this year has been a great year for AABDC. And that, as you probably some of you know, that in September we have our 23rd anniversary of the Outstanding 50 Asian American Business Award Program. And that was our most successful one. And we were honored to have all of them here as part of the award program. And also this year is the 30th anniversary of AABDC. And we are working really to and we just had a new board formed and put together. And there's a couple of our board members here. Rohan, you want to raise your hand? And Scott, Wang, and other, board member unfortunately, are traveling and not able to join us. But, we're working on next year, we have some very good program for, for all of you. And I think the last question that we were discussing about the incoming administration, I think that we have our Asian American Business Roundtable in February of this year, and we would love to address some of those questions, especially how Asian Americans have contributed to the economy of this country, and how that we can continue to perform and to doing a great job in helping this nation's recovery from the economic downturn.